Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for episode 145 of Tattoo Collecting 101, right here on Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Network, the community for tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and all those curious about the world of tattooing. We encourage everyone to join these live streams and real-world events as we aim to educate and inspire one another to create better artwork, tattoos, and to leave the community a better place than how we found it. We stream out most days of the week, so be sure to check out the full schedule of events that we have going on, as well as our professional development courses from over 20 world-class tattoo artists at reinventingthetattoo.com. You can find all these shows on our Roku channel, as well as your favorite podcast platforms. So search for Reinventing the Tattoo on both of those and you'll find us there. Real quick, we just want to say thank you to the sponsors who make it all possible. So thank you to World Tattoo Events, which has the largest, most comprehensive list of tattoo conventions going on in the world right now. Tattoo Now, technology for tattooers. They're the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattooers of all levels, as well as our affiliates of the Fireside Tattoo Network and the Apprenticeship Diaries. And lastly, we want to say thank you to Guy Atchison, who makes it all possible. He's the founder and inspiration behind the Reinventing the Tattoo community. And you can go to guyatchison.com to get your copy of the Biomech Encyclopedia, instructional DVDs, original oil paintings, and custom coil machines. And if you're enjoying the knowledge we're sharing out, be sure to share it with a friend and watch another video. And this week, it's a little different. We got Fawn on the road.
Yep. Just me and Kyle today. So we're going to put Kyle on the spot, but we'll wait till later. Nice. Sorry, I just got a distracting message from our coworker, Maddie. Not really that anything distracting about the message, but my phone's going off. So, this week, we kind of have a fun topic to poke fun about a little bit, just because it's been coming up a lot on the old Instagram Reels and the TikToks. And then on Tattoo Collecting Weekly, I kind of like threw out there that we'd spend today talking about fine line tattoos and, all of the yays or nays about them. We can look at it from a few different sides of the coin, I guess, and
the pros and cons of it.
Yeah, pros and cons, but there are a lot of like Instagram Reels that are popping up that are kind of like making fun of fine line tattoos, because like the argument is like fine line versus bold will hold. What are first of all, should we like, when it comes to the topic of fine line tattoos, there's even like schools that are popping up to teach people how to specifically do fine line tattooing. And there are a lot of people that consider like fine line tattooing and like tiny micro tattoos a whole new genre of tattooing, where in reality there are, a lot of people that might say that it's kind of a cop out and it's just like quick little etches rather than actual intended to be permanent artwork. What are your thoughts?
As someone who's like recently, learned about tattooing and the process of that, I thought they were really cool at first to see like these cool little pictures, and then as like I learned more, it's like, okay, that will just like fade and like expand and not necessarily hold up the same over time. So while they are cool to look at in like the here and now, the long term, they're not gonna necessarily be as attractive as you're looking to have them be.
Do me a favor and pull up just screen share, like Google search fine line tattoos, and then just share the images that pop up, just to give like an idea of like, if you follow my work at all, that I work very large. I work very like bold colors, very, very saturated. One of the things about my work is it's like definitely intended to stand the test of time. I expect my work to age and change as my client wears it. And that's kind of one of those things that I take in mind as I'm doing the tattoo. And I think one of the things with some of these fine line tattoos, like look at this one that's got like half the face of David there and the butterfly. Like that's a lot of like dainty little tattoos.
Are you talking about this one up here?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
It's a lot of dainty little tattoos, but what are those going to look like in 10 years? how consistent will all those little dots be? How nice will all those soft grays actually look without the size to back them up? That
Even if you want
atlas
to
is
look at
so
like the
little down there.
lines, even if you want to look at like just like the line part of it, like the spacing, how is that going to hold up too as it like slowly expands?
Yeah, I actually sent some different like healed pictures that I found off of the old Googles. What some of these tattoos look like when they're freshly done, and then what they look like 2.5 and 3 years later. Like if we look at the one right next to this, if you go back up, if you look at the one right next to this,
This one?
that's gonna look like pencil lines in 2 years. I mean, if that's what you're going for, that's awesome, but like it's not gonna stay this crisp, black, wispy little, like I guess in my opinion, that's why for the most part we got away from using like single needles to begin with, because it doesn't hold. But then you see people that have whole sleeves of work like this.
You want me to pull up
I don't know.
the article with the healed ones as well?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that had like 10 different examples. They're not all fine line tattoos, but they're definitely there's a few different styles of tattoos, but they do a good job of showing you what they're gonna look like when you like put them up against the test of time. Like this tattoo fresh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like a little too dainty and delicate. So like if I were to do something like this, I would know that it was going to heal to these softer lines and those like softer, very thin little contour lines that are in the fresh tattoo. They're just not going to heal there. And when you see this is only a year healed. So imagine what this is going to look like in 5 years. That's a good example of how like the stipples settle, like the little dot work that you see in tattoos. This is actually a pretty good example of what these look like. I'd say, I mean, this is perfectly reasonable heel. It's on an ankle, it looks like. But again, you see how much it changes. Like it's just the reality. Like some of the ink travels a little bit. If you do a super fine dot, that dot is going to expand and be less dark, a little bit fuzzy. But that's one of those, like, that's just the reality. We're like, when we look at a healed tattoo, we're not looking at like a drawing on a piece of paper. You're looking into the skin as if it's a lens. And then as you look into the skin, that skin has healed and, those particles of ink have traveled just a little bit. And every time we shed more skin cells, we grow more skin cells. So that ink is going to travel just a tiny bit more. This, I think, is a wonderful example. Like those are there's stippled lines and there's little lines in there, but you can see how those bold, like thick lines that were put in with like intention and like black. 2.5 years later, this looks the same. This probably looks the same as it did like 5 days after it was done. It's just like a good example after the last couple we looked at. Like when you hear bold will hold, even though this is still a delicate tattoo, it's like the bolder lines hold. This is like half a sunburn away from being faded and gone. I don't know. Look at how light that sword is. You've got a little bit of black in it. But
I feel like
it
you
looks like
could
it's
make
getting
this
real
work
light.
as well if you like purposely design it to heal over time, you know what I mean? Like you would have to probably expand it a bit and like make those like thin lines probably like, triple the size, but I feel like you would still get a similar effect.
Like if the lines around the blade were just a little bit bolder, or I don't know. Like I said, like on starting this discussion, my personal preference is bold lines. I like tattoos that can be seen from across a football field. I feel like if you're going to go through the pain of getting a tattoo, you might as well like have a tattoo that's worth showing off and can be seen. But that's my personal preference. Like one of the things that I like to keep in mind is like sometimes people aren't ready to commit to real big stuff and they kind of have to dip their toes in the water. So these little fine line tattoos, that's kind of what that is. And sometimes you can, you know, you'll grow into the bigger work. I thought this was a good example when I was looking through references to talk about today. This actually has two things I would love to talk about because it's got some opaque grays in it as well as just straight line work.
Mhm.
But you can see how like as delicate as all those little lines and all of the hair are, once they healed out, they kind of healed together and it almost looks like a etching style of shading. It's one of those things that like with consideration, an artist can really use to their advantage. You know, this face still looks pretty much the same, but lose some details in the lips and the eyes. But one of the things like with the opaque gray, and this just has that little bit there by the chin and neck, and then a little bit up at the top, but like, I just don't know if that is holding out as well as like actual gray wash would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like when you tattoo with a whole bunch of white or a whole bunch of pastel, those colors really change a lot over time if you don't have that like complement right next to them to back it up. And I feel like we just like weirdly start to lose some of that like softness. It just kind of looks discolored.
Yeah. I
And
see
that's
what
not,
you
I'm
mean when
not
you say that.
criticizing how it was done. It's just an observation. This is just my own personal observation and how some of those opaque grays heal. And I just don't know if that's always the intention is to have it change and shift that much. But so we keep our solid, like you can see the solid like hard outlines pretty well still, but some of those soft, delicate lines in the middle of the jellyfish get totally lost. And for me, like when we talk about fine line stuff, it just seems like, well, that was kind of a waste of pain to even put those lines in if they're not going to stand the test of time. You know what I mean? Like a waste of the pain to get that line put in and then a waste of pain while it's healing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, starting this out, like there's just a trend right now on Instagram where everybody's kind of poking fun at these fine line tattoos. If they're your jam, that's awesome. Just keep in mind that this is the reality of how they heal. You know, I actually loved this one because the flame healed so softly once it settled. Like the lighter is still pretty crisp. You lose some of the stipples in the heart, but that flame is pretty cool. Like, I don't know if the artist intended for it to fade that much. I don't know if they intended for us to lose some of the detail in like the, you know, right by the striker, but it still looks good. It's delicate, it's dainty, but there was a lot of detail that's just gone after it healed up. These are the things that we talk about when we say that the fine line won't hold. It's just they went through the pain to get those lines put in. And now that it's almost 5 years healed, you can't even see those details at all. So like it's not discouraging how well it was even put in. Like this original tattoo looks wonderful. Like
Mhm.
I can't
That's just
nitpick
the
anything
nature of the
about it.
design.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a nature of the size of the design is what it is. The design itself is fine, but if you would have
Gotcha.
made it like maybe not even twice as big, but just put bolder lines on it or use like, you know, a larger needle configuration to stipple in those little dots and stuff in the heart, those little
Mhm.
textures, or, you know, use just a little bit bolder of a line to like put all those details in like the metal part right around the flame. I don't know what that little collar is called. Collar? I don't know. But
Chamber?
yeah, I don't know. That little guard, the
Yeah.
little don't burn yourself guard. But this is a wonderful tattoo. It's just this is actually a perfect example of this tattoo healed perfect and it's aging exactly the way a tattoo is going to age. But even with it being still good, it's now different as time has passed. And I don't know. I think it's one of those things that can be considered when a tattoo is being designed is how is it going to age and settle in. But I think a lot of these fine line tattoos, that's not really the
The goal.
concern at all. Yeah. What do we got next? Eyes. Kyle, what do you think about these eyes after they've aged for 5 years? Talk to me about your thoughts.
They look blurry. It's kind of like hard to pick everything out, you know?
You're kinda. They definitely like the lines and the eyebrows spread. Now you've got
Mhm.
just like softer eyebrows. That doesn't necessarily look bad, but
I think
I feel
like
like we
around like the
lost a lot of our
eyelashes on like the
eyelashes.
left one, yeah, where it all just kind of like blends into like a big black mass.
It's just like, yeah, that's exactly it. It just kind of blurs into a black mass. It's not bad, but
No,
like,
like it's effective. It looks like almost like a comic book style now, like transformed.
mhm, yep.
But
You
was
know,
that
that's
was that
actually a
the
really good
original
way to look at it.
intention?
hmm Yep, it does. And this is a good example of like when we say bold will hold, like that's the thing that gets repeated all the time. Because like if you want it to look graphic, if you want those lines to like stay crispy and stay dark and stay dominant, then you just have to make a big, solid, confident line. And
Hmm.
you can tell in like those lines, like in the under eyelid, you can tell where like, oh, there might have been, like when I say confidence, there might have been like a lack of confidence as those lines were made, or because you can see how, they're in the original photo, they look pretty consistent, but once they've healed and that ink has traveled a little bit, you can see the inconsistencies. You can see, like, you can tell where certain lines were gone over a couple of times because they aged a little different. But it's still a really good tattoo. The highlights are good. I mean,
Yeah, all the information's
this
still there.
is, yeah, this is just what time does to tattoos. And this is why, like when I do my big colorful stuff, I like to just slam complementary colors next to one another because they kind of like hold each other in place, and like as one ages, the other ages also, but they keep that complementary relationship to one another. So things still pop. Um, you know, I feel like color tattoos, yes, full color tattoos age and change, and realism tattoos age and change. But sometimes I just feel like when you've got more than just the line work, you can kind of control a little bit more what's going to happen. And, like I said, with aging in mind, you can actually like, I think, push a tattoo in a direction that it becomes more interesting as it ages. Does that make
Hmm.
any sense, Kyle?
Yeah, it like kind of like
Like,
you like plan it to be a certain way down the line, and so you
yeah.
just kind of slowly like watch it like morph together to like what the
Mhm.
intention was.
Yeah, that's something that's pretty cool about that I learned from getting tattooed. It wasn't something that I learned from another tattooer telling me this. It wasn't something that I learned from like anything another tattooer or anything like that could have shown me. But once Adam started working on my leg and we got like the first layer on the whole leg, but everything was just kind of like roughed in. It was like outlined and there was just a little bit of shading here and there. As I could watch those layers progress from one area to the next, and then I could watch like how Adam put the colors in and how he would work with like the mag marks and like the crisscross hatch work and the things that like the patterns that just magically appear from the way we tattoo. Like watching how my skin healed was cool, but then watching how it continued healing and how it like the ink continued like almost like have you ever like done a watercolor painting where you put down one color and then you just barely touch it with another and it's like this bright
Yeah.
vibrant like juxtaposition of two colors, and then you come back and you look at it like 6 hours later and it's almost dry and those colors have slowly morphed together and become new colors in between. The
Hmm.
cool thing is I got to see that happen like on a microscopic level on my leg, where like one color, he would have applied one color in one direction, and the next session he would have brought another color in. And then over the next like 6 months or year, I could see how those colors worked with each other. And as they healed, they would become these new, smooth, beautiful colors in between. So it was kind of like it wasn't really like a single aha moment, but it was one of those, like, I slowly became able to understand what my ink was going to do over time. Like if I fully saturated and then washed into another color and then brought that other color back, how are those colors going to marry into one another? And how are those line works and textures going to heal? It's one of those things where, like, now with color tattoos, it's almost innate. Like I know I need a hard boundary, whether it's with a hard line or whether it's with a hard, like, complementary color. And it's still going to shift, but now I feel like I have a little bit more control of how it might shift. There's always like unplanned variables, but like it's almost like planning ahead for how the ink is going to migrate into the skin, and you work with it instead of making it be a problem or a hindrance. It's actually like an interesting natural part of how the tattoo's gonna be.
Mhm.
I thought this was cool. This is a great example of how the tattoo healed. In the first photo, it's super dark. It looks like you can still see like some of the stencil even through there. And in the second photo, it's like this delicate, almost like a pencil sketch or like a fine copper litho. Like it's healed great. It's still crisp. It's a little bit lighter, but I love the way they brought in the traditional dots all through and behind the stars
Mhm.
and dots and kind of just tucked it in with the other traditional work. I just thought it made this little guy look like a daydream amidst like dark, bold line work. So that, I don't know, that's a cool example. They could have re-outlined this and made it just as bold as everything else, but I think it looks really cool that it's just kind of softer.
Yeah. Faint off in the distance a little.
Yeah. So like any criticisms I have, there's always a time and a place for a tiny dainty tattoo, but it's just like if you want dainty tattoos, you have to be prepared for that dainty tattoo to only be around or exist the way that it exists for a few years. And then it's going to be a much lighter version or something you're going to just cover with a bigger, like more, I don't want to say more serious, but like a bigger, yeah, like a bigger, more serious tattoo, something that takes up more
More committed
real estate.
piece.
Yep. Like I said, you go from like dipping your toes into the water to like jumping right in. Some people just take a cannonball and jump in. You jumped in pretty quick and just started getting big tattoos. My first
Yeah,
couple
my third
tattoos were a
tattoo
little
was starting
smaller.
my sleeve.
Now look at you,
Slightly more
turning
covered.
into the bio boy. Do what?
Slightly more covered.
Yep, yep, you're getting there. You've
Yeah,
got an amazing collection going so far. Is this the last one? Are there more?
that is the last one.
What do you think, Kyle? Have you learned anything from watching the way that your tattoos have healed yet?
Um, in regards
Been
to
worked
that,
on.
not specifically. I mean, like I have like a couple on myself that I've like seen and watched progress, and it's more so like watching like I guess like the unsteadiness of the line work kind of start to pull through and show
Mhm.
itself in that way. That's like more so like the change that I've seen with mine.
Cool. I
Yeah.
actually meant with the tattoos that you wear, not the
Oh,
ones that you're
sorry.
healing. Yeah. Yeah, I meant like your actual tattoos. Because you've had Dave Barton, you've
Hmm.
had Jordan, you've had Guy. Who else has worked on you?
There was another tattooer named Esteban who did like one of my tattoos back in California there. But
Mhm.
those are the 4 people that have worked on me.
Prominently.
Yeah.
Um, Isn't it crazy like how each artist has a different process? The way, I mean,
Hmm.
they're all working in bio, but like different needle choices, different color choices, different, like they all layer, but they layer so differently from one
Hmm.
another. Have you started to see like the differences in how one tattooer's work settles in versus the other?
A little bit, not necessarily too much though.
putting you on the spot. You're like, "Man,
I know,
didn't
well,
we were going to talk about
um,
this."
I'm still learning, you know?
It's okay. Yeah. How many years ago did you start your sleeve?
5, 6.
Okay. Still a baby in the tatty game, but now
Yeah.
you're like your arm, your riblets, majority of your leg.
I'm getting there.
Okay, it's a lot of work
Yeah.
already. Do you
Pro-
want to jump into? Oh, you know what? We should show that John Nelson video. Did we show it yet?
We did not. Let me pull it up.
We were going to show that first, and then we got distracted.
Slightly out of order, but that's okay.
Well, our rhythm's off because we don't have Ben cackling at both of us.
True. He keeps us in
Him
line.
jabbing me in the ribs, roasting you all day.
Look, guys, it's a tattoo shop.
What's up, man? Looking to get a tattoo.
Well, you're in luck. We have a few left.
That's sick, dude. That's sick. We want fine line tattoos.
And we want you to keep your voice down.
That's on me. We want fine line tattoos.
Oh, okay, I just don't do that. I do permanent tattoos.
Yeah, we want permanent ones.
So that means in 10 years it'll still be there?
Huh. Yeah, you get it.
So bold lines.
No, yeah, like fine line that'll still be there in 10 years.
Oh, like something that doesn't exist.
Do we want something that doesn't exist? Nah, just regular ones.
I'm not fucking doing fine line.
Nah, that's cool, dog. Do you guys have like an artist that specializes in that?
Yeah, he's actually right over there.
I'll be there in a second.
Pretty great.
That's what it'd be like. That's what it'd be like. Like, do you want what? How about you just get like a grown-up tattoo? That's what I want to say.
A grown-up tattoo. Yeah.
Like if you're okay, like think about it like this. If you're gonna go to the trouble of tracking down my webpage and filling out my form, that's step one. Then you got to
Mhm.
wait a couple months for me to have consultation days. That's step two. Consultation day, we got to have like deposit, talk ideas, schedule our actual tattoo, and then wait a couple more months. After all that waiting, after all that planning, after all of that like sacrificing of your real estate for whatever you want tattooed, like don't you want to get something like bolder and worth looking at? And not that these little dainty tattoos aren't worth looking at, but like after all of that, don't you want something more to show for it? I guess that's what
Maybe
it is.
it's like
not like
a difference in like education level, I guess, about tattoos. Cause like I had the same mentality when I started getting tattoos where it's like I wanted to start smaller and then get larger. However, my definition of smaller was like all of my arm up here and then larger into a sleeve. So I think for some people, it's like start with like the dainty fine line, move into like a regular tattoo.
Yeah. Different motivations, different styles of collecting. You know, there was a time to be the opposite. There is an artist recently that I found. I don't know if I bounced him to the Instagram or not. But he does what he calls etching tattoos, where they actually look like plate printed like etchings, like illustrations, like old school illustrations.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't consider that in the fine line category because he's actually like using bold lines, like real lines, like he's cross hatching and he's doing the things. So I'm not just like knocking on I didn't send it to our Instagram. It must be in another location. But I don't want to knock just fine line stuff. There is a time and a place for it, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel like getting a proficient tattooer to take you seriously when you want a fine line tattoo, that's going to be the challenge because it like it really just kind of clogs our schedule up more than anything. Like if you go into a walk-in shop, they might be able to do these little dainty tattoos, but then, you know, if it's not somebody that specializes in those dainty, delicate tattoos, what's it going to look like in 5 years? What's it going to look like in 10 years? You know, there are artists who specialize in delicate, dainty, itty bitty little, like fine line, fine black and gray, like, but they're kind of specialized, and it's not a everyday thing. And to like, I don't know, I think it's just holding awful high expectations for something so little and dainty and clogging up the schedules of artists when, like, for all of the same effort, the same amount of money, you could get something bold that you're actually going to have forever. I guess that's my candid opinion. It's like, yeah, you do all the waiting and do all the things and wait your turn and pay the deposit and jump through the hoops. But like after all of that, don't you want something worth showing off? Not that like a little like half sun in little gray pencil lines isn't worth showing off, but like we could do that and something
Yeah,
bold
get a
and
cooler
worth both
half
of our
sun.
time. Huh?
Get a cooler half sun.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Get a cooler half sun, or like I said, we could do something cool and the half sun. I am totally down to do something like rad and then like a couple little cool ideas also. But it's really hard to schedule something that's going to take 8 minutes when, you know, there's kind of the process of like waiting your turn and then discussing
Mhm.
ideas, and then from there waiting for the actual appointment, or rolling the dice with a walk-in, which you might get somebody excellent, but you might also get somebody that would, you know,
Not as
take
excellent.
your money. You know, some tattooers take your money.
Yeah.
You know. But so what's Kyle been working on? What's Kyle been up to? We've kind of like announced that you've officially started your apprenticeship. But we haven't really gotten to pick your brain or see what Derbs had you up to.
I've been drawing and doing exercises every day for the past couple months.
So to be fair though, you've really been keeping up with like the exercises and curriculum style learning for a while now, going through the reinventing stuff with Guy and
Mhm.
following along with all of those exercises. So you as long as I've known you, you've been very diligent with like leveling up your art skills and actually like following through with all of these projects. So it's pretty exciting to see what you've got going on.
Yeah. I got a little video here. This is like all of the stuff that I've done in the first 2 months here. I like laid it all out on the table to like see it all.
Look at those pages on pages on pages already, Kyle.
Putting in the work.
Yes, sir, you sure are. Isn't it crazy how doing these like repetitive exercises, like at first they seem pointless. It seems pointless, but once you start getting that like repetitive motion, then your hand just starts doing some of these things that like a graceful line that was a challenge a few months ago is now just without even thinking about it, you can make that shape.
You know, I said the same thing about when I started tracing traditional flash. I thought I would have like, I thought I would struggle more with like trying to like push through it and understand it, but it like immediately clicked. Like I did like a page of each and I was like, cool, I understand why I'm doing this. I get it.
Yeah, it's all about like just training your hand on how to move.
Hmm.
It's just like an athlete. When an athlete practices the same drill over and over again for whatever sport it is. We could talk about hurdles, we could talk about catching drills and baseball, we could talk about, you know, different ways to throw or catch in football. All the things, like the more you practice any one thing, any one minute mechanical thing of the task, the more you do that, the more your brain goes from like thinking real hard about this to like it just knows what to do instinctively. And that's the cool thing. So like when you look Like, for instance, next time you look at an elephant, you're probably not gonna like the things that you draw are going to just like come more natural to you because you've drawn these shapes a few times, you've drawn these forms a few times, you've kind of like understood how the weight was distributed a few times. So like
Mhm.
each mark becomes more fluid the next time you do something similar. It's like doing these little Spalding shapes that you've got behind this guy. Those even probably changed from one to the next as you were figuring out how to make those like colliding circles to make the star.
A little bit, yeah. I was gonna put some on the bottom too and like forgot at first, so I like try to like double up a bit on the top to even it out a little.
It looks super good.
But I remember the things that you were saying about trying to like achieve those and leaving some space open for them.
Mhm. I like the little flames underneath this guy's feet too. Like, even though they're not traditional hard lined flames, it's really cool that you took the time to draw those other flames before you did this, because now they look so much more like graceful and flowy. And it's
I
another
will say
example
the
of like the
intention is for
muscle
those to be
memory.
color lines.
It'll be color.
Yeah, color lines for the fire. That's like the initial intention with it.
But just the shape of them, you know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
shape of them is just, like the other flames that you've already practiced. You go thick to thin, and the lines are all very graceful, even though they're like shorter, stubbier flames. Now you start seeing like the visual rules that you kind of have to follow to make it like make sense and look like good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you can make any shape and make it look like a squiggly flame, but actually make a flame that looks like it could be, you know, pushing energy to elevate this thing. It starts to really like, I don't know, the more you do it, the easier it is to make it make sense.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Got this guy as well. A little dragon.
More flames.
More flames.
He looks awesome. This guy would be great wrapped around an elbow or a knee.
Mm-hmm.
Are those dragon balls around him? Is that what I see there?
They were like little like orbs of fire that I kind of just copy and pasted to add to the design a little. And then I'll share this one. This is like the most recent thing that Durb's been having me do is roses.
Nice. Are you using watercolor?
Color pencil.
Nice. These are wonderful.
Thank you.
I can see how you're still experimenting with like the way you're going to draw your roses.
Well, he told
I
me
think
to
there's
do
like
like
a
5 styles of roses, and I interpret that as like 5 different tattoo styles.
nice. Yep.
So that's kind of like
I was
what
looking
aim
at like
for.
the middle of the roses, how they're like constructed, the anatomy of the flower.
Mhm.
They're pretty awesome. I like the way this bottom one almost looks like stone.
A little bit, yeah.
Getting pretty crazy with it, Kyle. I like that dark purple behind the yellow rose too. It really kind of makes him come out and look like golden.
Thank you. Gotta have the contrast in there, right?
Always, of course.
But yeah, this has been my doing for the past 2 months is pages on pages of sheets and occasionally cool drawings. Lots of lines and circles.
I feel like every time I come in, you're sitting there just doing your exercises, and it's like I don't want to interrupt, but at the same time, I want to be nosy and see what all you're working on. I remember when there was a period where I was kind of like obsessed with calligraphy for a while, and I just like I still have a few of them, but I have like thick notebooks where like
Mhm.
every page is just the thing that I chose to practice with was addresses, because like if you're practicing like So you just have like 3 or 4 friends' addresses and you just write them over and over again. It gives you a chance to practice capital letters and lowercase letters, how you want your flips to like underline the rest of the word,
Right,
like all
right.
that fancy stuff. But it's also letters and numbers. And I think there are a lot of like really good like people that are proficient with lettering that might not do numbers very well because they didn't think to practice the numbers along with the alphabet, where
Right.
you know, whatever the thing is, you wrote A, B, C, D a million times, but you didn't write cat, dog, mom,
Yeah.
it's like, I
Partially.
don't know
there.
if they, I don't know if they taught cursive when you were in elementary school
They
still.
did.
You know cursive?
I do. My cursive's pretty loose, but I do know it.
Nice. But you know how it was like you just practice like the same letter over and
Yeah.
over, and you just like make the same H over and over. And um I feel like if we could have played around more with actually making words pretty rather than like only the mechanics of the letters, like can we do the mechanics and make it pretty?
You gotta have a little fun with it too.
Yeah. Yep. So what's next on your project list for DERB? Do you have anything? You still just exercises?
We're actually done with the exercises, he told me, and tomorrow we're doing grapefruits.
What?
Yeah.
You're actually doing them like with guidance, not like on air, like here we go. Let's just see what happens.
well, most of this exercise too has just been like me at my own pace, like not a lot of guidance because Durb's been out of town for most of it so far.
Mhm.
So it's always nice to like get a second and learn from him.
It's that's one of the things that does make it so cool that when I come in, you're always over there, just kind of in your world doing your thing. There are a lot of people that would be given the opportunity that you've been given, or even like have been given. And when the suggestion is made, here, try this, they don't realize that like that was the test or that
Mhm.
was the like, so it's awesome to see you actually like just nose to the grindstone. That's how you've been since I've known you, though, is nose to the grindstone, always like excited to learn more. So it's really
Yeah.
cool that now, you've gone from Kyle, the apprentice hopeful, to the apprentice,
Yeah.
That's pretty magic. It's a big step in the journey. I just broke my vape because I was
Oh,
fidgeting
no.
with it too hard.
But I definitely
I'll put
am
it back
like
together.
in the heavier than normal nose to the grindstone right now.
Well, but it's one of the nice things about like just picking up your life and moving across the country is you have fewer distractions, and like
Yeah.
most of your friend group is our coworkers. So, you're not going to get you know, in any situations that are going to like distract you from your dream. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
there's 1,000 pitfalls that you could go into if you were like, I don't know, in your hometown with a whole bunch of people that like, there's just more temptation to
Yeah.
not work so hard. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
To be fair,
So
I
you
didn't have
just-
much going on in my hometown, so this was just me looking to spend time doing something productive with my life, and turned into a wonderful
Yeah.
thing that it is now.
It's still it's like you're at the very beginning of your journey. Like as long as
Yeah.
you've been working at this, it's like all the work that you've done up to like actually officially starting your apprenticeship. All
The
of it
prequel.
was like working towards this goal of becoming a tattoo apprentice. And now that, that goal, that dream has fallen into your lap, now the picture has gotten bigger.
Mhm.
So, there's this awesome opportunity, but at the same time, this opportunity that's going to be like nothing but work for the next several months. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be work, and like Derb's wonderful, but he's not going to like give it to you for free. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He's going to like really make you work. He's anybody who's learned from Derb really becomes a very good tattooer. So as hard as the work is going to be over the next several months, and as many things as you're going to do over and over again, and as many times as like you start showing stuff off and it gets ripped apart because you're told 10 things that was done wrong with it. Well, you already know the 90 things that were right. So we
Right.
don't need to talk about those. So sometimes those things can get like heavy, but at the same time, the life that you're going to have once you're finished with everything is like, I don't know, it's a dream come true for anybody. You get
Yeah.
to do what you want every day, work on people, meet people. I don't know. It's
Have a
pretty
nice
thing
environment
like
to
that.
learn and grow from as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool privilege to be a part of, like, not just like the tattoo family and tattoo community, but to actually like get up every day and you get to make a difference in somebody else's life. Like it might be something as superficial as putting like a silly sticker tattoo on somebody or a tiny dainty fine line tattoo.
Yeah.
But you get to make those connections with people and you get to do something different every single day. You know, you get to find your own path. You know, you're not going into an office, you're not going into a factory. You know, sometimes it's grueling and it feels like that, and it feels like
Mhm.
maybe that would be the way to go. But you know, once you get over the like, I like to call things growing pains. Once you get over the like growing pains of starting out,
Yeah.
it's really going to be a cool life for you. So I'm pretty
excited for it.
excited. Like you're still just at the very, it's like there's like this huge swimming pool of tattooers, right?
Mhm.
There's like millions of tattooers now, hundreds of thousands of tattooers all over the world. There's this huge swimming pool of them. And it's like you finally gotten the privilege to say, like, yeah, you can go jump off the diving board, but you got to wait in this line and then you got to climb that tall ladder.
Right.
And it's one of those like, that's all going to happen. But all these little
Patience.
steps, like each one, it's like each one of these sheets that you do is another step up that rung. It's like there might be like 500,000 of those rungs, but each page that you trace, each page of exercises, each little task is like one more step up that rung.
Mhm.
And it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, the thing that I always heard
Okay.
that always stuck with me is like be so good that they can't deny you. You know what I mean? That's kind of the goal that I strive for. So that way it like
Well,
at least if my words don't get me far, the quality of my work will.
there's this funny thing that I've heard when you say something like, if your words don't get you somewhere. My buddy Clayton, who I highly respect, I was much, much younger. I was probably like 20,
Mhm.
21, very, very young. And he found out I was an artist and he and I became friends and we started talking and all the things. And in one of our discussions, he said that the most talented person in the room never has to tell you they're the most talented person in the room. And that's always stuck with me. Like your mouth, like if you're really talented, if you really work hard enough, if you're really that good of a person and that good of a worker, like you don't have to tell people anything about you. It speaks
Right.
for
It just
itself.
shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's one of those things. But in hearing that, I've always kind of kept in mind when you hear that boastful person in the room, it's just like, okay, you can go ahead and keep talking if it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
You know, that's because of like that little nudge early on. That's something that I've always kind of like had in the back of my mind. Is the most talented person in the room never has to tell you they're the most talented in the room or the smartest in the room or the strongest in the room or whatever. But usually the person that's the best doesn't have to tell you they're the best. Their
Yeah.
work speaks for itself. Their quality of character speaks for itself. And I think you're on an awesome track. And I'm really excited to keep watching it.
It's exciting to
So
watch it grow and blossom into what it is now because it's gone
Yeah.
way better than I could have expected it to.
it's a lot of, I mean, I keep saying, I've been seeing you and your hunger to learn. So it's really cool to see it, not to be like to see it finally pay off. Cause like as a
But
bystander,
yeah,
I knew the
slowly
day would
paying off,
come,
but like the big like payoff step.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, it's like, just a big milestone. It needs to be
Mhm.
celebrated. And I think periodically, maybe not every week. I think every week want to hear a little bit about what you're working on, but I think every few weeks or so we should do the same thing and just see what the progress is like. Because like I mentioned earlier, there's all these like tattoo schools and stuff that are popping up. There are tattoo schools online tattoo schools that are teaching specifically fine line tattooing, and
And that's like
there
definitely
are
something that I looked at
tattooers.
when I was starting to, is like seeing like online courses about it. It's like, well, I'm looking for information, right? That seems like a place to go.
That's one way.
It's a place to go.
But I think it'll be cool to actually have our viewers kind of understand the process and understand what goes into like being a good tattooer. You've got tattooers that, like myself, I'm self-taught, and I'm the first one to say that if I would have had somebody like Derb to teach me, my first 5 years could have been my first 6 months in all of the
Right.
things that I learned on my own. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I feel very confident in what I've learned all along the way. And I feel like I've been confident in my capabilities all along the way. And I feel like my capabilities are constantly growing. But could I have learned everything on my own the way that I did? Yeah, like a lot of people do. But if I would have had a good mentor, that first several years of struggle could have been several months to
Yeah.
like get me closer to where I want to be.
That's why
So
I'm like so thankful for Derb, and even like the working with Kai for a while too. Is it's like I was looking to like, if if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it correctly. I want to do it good, and I want to like learn from the best. And I was able to get
Mhm.
that.
not everybody has those opportunities.
Yeah.
Um,
Real golden
and it's pretty awesome to
opportunity.
like, yeah, it's pretty awesome to kind of like just reflect on like gratitude of, the struggle and like all the things that like when I was starting to tattoo, all the lessons that like I didn't have like a whole shop full of artists to be like, oh, I see this thing that you did, but hey, try this, or here's
Yeah.
this new trick that you should try, or I didn't have those people around me, and I didn't have like, I mean, I had my painting teachers, I had my, art teachers all along the way, but that's not the same as like, these are tried and true tricks. You can
Mhm.
try it 6 hard ways or 5 wrong ways until you figure out the best way for you, or you can like just listen to what was the easiest way for me and then go from there. Like if I would
Yeah.
have just had somebody to like, or even sometimes, somebody to like, if I were to be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a thing like this. And if somebody could just be like, yeah, that's a great idea, do it just like that. Or like, no, don't do it like that, try it this way. If I could have had
Mhm.
somebody to kind of give me permission to do things, when I'd get like, what if I shaded it like this? What if I layered it like that? If I could have
Right.
just like bounced that idea off of somebody, I could have like experimented much more boldly instead of just like tiny little experiments and then
Give you
seeing
that
how they're going to
confidence to
heal.
like really make that like big change in it, knowing that
Mhm.
it would work correctly.
Yep. It's I know it's incredibly hard and incredibly competitive to get a tattoo apprenticeship, but one of the reasons is, a lot of tattooers and mentors want to weed out people who aren't going to put their nose to the grindstone like you have. And that if there is a hazing that is necessary, I think that is it. When I had my own studio, I was teaching my younger brother how to tattoo, and then I had another buddy who kind of started his apprenticeship and then took a job that didn't allow for both. Um, and then other than that, throughout the years, I had people that would come and ask me about apprenticeships, and like my test would be I recommend them a book, and it's Drawing is on the Right Side of the Brain. Awesome book that I think everybody
Mhm.
should have. But that was my test. Like if you're a serious artist and you actually want to do art for a living, you've got to like want to know how to make it. And like
Yeah.
to know how to make art, you first need to know how to communicate visually with your hands and eyes. And this book does a great job of breaking it down from like the simplest forms all the way up to portraits and landscapes and like anything you could draw by looking at something and then translating it to paper. And I feel like for me, that was my test, because if you couldn't take something that I love so much, if you couldn't take that seriously enough to go pick up a $16 book and then actually like at least leaf through it and then get
Mhm.
back to me, I'm not going to waste my time teaching you any of the other things that I know. So like that was my little test, and I can't. We're talking in the teens of people,
Yeah.
not 20s, not 30s, but in the teens of people over the years that would come in, talk the talk, show me their drawings, show me the tattoo equipment they already had, show me the tattoos that they were already doing,
Mhm.
you know. And when I would recommend this book that would help any artist, I wouldn't ever hear from them again. So for me, that was my very first hoop, and most people didn't go through the first hoop, and you've like gone through a lot of hoops to get where you are. And you know, some of those hoops were really going out on a limb, and some of them were just simply showing up.
Yeah.
But each one of those, you know, back to like, it's just another step on the rung. Each time you showed up, it was just another step closer to your goal. So it's really cool to watch that happen. And hopefully other people that pay attention to our show, they're going to see things that we're talking about, and they're going to say like, oh, maybe that guy wasn't telling me to go get lost the way I thought he was telling me to go get lost. He was actually giving me some helpful advice. Or like,
Just trying to test
you
you.
know, you'll hear of artists like, or apprenticeship hopefuls. You'll hear them going into studios and showing off their work, and then the people that are running the show or the artists they want to mentor them is like, yeah, why don't you do this, and this, and come back in a few years? Like, that's not a no.
Yeah. I mean, that's what
You
I
know
was
what I
told
mean?
too, was like, go do some art classes and come back. And I'd show up like every like 3 or 4 months and be like, hey, I'm making progress. Check this out.
But how many people have you heard the story of, yeah, they said that I needed this and this, and they give up right there, right at
Yeah.
the, like, you were just given the most helpful piece of advice and you didn't take it serious. Like, you were given advice that was the first step and you didn't take it seriously, or you didn't catch it. You
Mhm.
didn't catch that was a, like,
You like assumed it was someone blowing you off.
yeah, yeah. Because like I've kind of heard feedback about that with me. Is she told me to go get an art book, like that's going to teach me how to tattoo. Well, if you don't
Yeah.
think that an art book is going to teach you how to tattoo, I can't teach you how to tattoo like I do, because I feel like I tattoo like I paint. And I
Mhm.
can't teach you how to tattoo like I paint if I can't first teach you how to draw and paint like I do. You know what I mean? Like if I was going to teach you, I'd have to teach you to understand how I build things out of thin air, you know.
You
I'd
gotta
have
you
to
gotta know how
teach you
art
my thought
works.
process first. Yeah, I'd have to teach you my thought process first, and then we could turn it into tattooing, where like learning from Derb, it's a totally different process. Like he's, you know, he knows you've already been doing the art stuff. He knows you've
Mhm.
already been learning how to paint. So now Derb has to teach you how to tattoo. With me, it'd be the other way around. I'd want to make sure we were on the same page with a paintbrush first.
Right.
And once we're on the same page with a paintbrush, it's going to be like, okay, so remember that thing I showed you how to do with this and this? Okay, so we're going to do it with a 9 mag now. That's, for me, that's the most reasonable way to teach somebody, is if I can show you how to do it on paper, then we can easily translate it to skin, but it doesn't work well the other way around for me. So,
Right.
but anyways, so we've been talking for like an hour already. We could keep talking if you have any more exciting things you want to share, or we could wrap up, or
I do not have anything else exciting because that has just been my life, is working away.
good. That's you know, that's how it starts. It's kind of
Yeah.
like Gil Monty posted a video. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but I watched it today, and it was one of those videos where it was a pretty encouraging video, but it was like, if you want a tattoo, it's going to consume your life. This isn't a 9 to 5 job. This is like when you wake up, you're instantly answering to people. When you get to work, you're answering to people, you're dealing with people, and then when you get home, you're creating art and you're doing creative things for the next day's work. So it's one of those, like, you might be at the shop for 40 hours if you're lucky, but you're probably at the shop for 60 hours a week, and then you have another 30 hours of work on top of that, just communicating with people. And we haven't even gotten to social media. That's like a whole nother 30 hours.
See, that's the part I've been neglecting over the past 2 months now too. But I'm like stockpiling videos and whatnot to like post up.
I realized on my Instagram, I looked the other day and I was like, oh man, I haven't posted a video in that long. Let's see, when was it?
I was struggling a lot, like just doing all those paintings because it's like, man, I'm not like pumping out enough paintings to be posting them. I don't have a backlog of paintings to post. Everything I've done is on my page already.
The last thing I posted was on June 23rd. And
Gotta get
before that was
posted.
June 7th. Yeah, my inbox is full enough.
Fair.
I feel like when I post a lot more, I get a lot more tire kickers. Like I get attention, but it's not
Mhm.
necessarily attention that it's more like distracting attention is what it is. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you've seen me when I'm nerding out on Instagram. I'm on like I have a lot of ridiculous memes and reels that I watch, but like there's a ton of science pages and there's a lot of things that I'm like really into, but like I don't know. I feel like if I post regularly, then I just get, like I said, I get distracting attention. I get attention from people that are never going to get tattooed by me. They just want to talk about tattoos or an idea
Right.
that is
This
not
way,
in
like
my
the way you have it
wheelhouse.
now, it's
or-
like people like who actually like know what they want, you know, like your expertise. They sought you
Yeah.
out for it. So it's a lot less to sift through in terms of like
yeah.
things that'll never happen.
It's funny. I say that I never post on Instagram, but how many videos a week do we put out? At least 2 now, if I don't put
True.
anything else out. So I guess that's my online presence. Instead of being on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, I'm on
We do this.
the Reinventing Network. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like I get a lot more out of this than I do making posts and stuff on Instagram. Like the time that I put into making these videos, I could make like 3 or 4 or 5 reels between a few hours.
Yeah.
In that time, I don't know. I feel like I'd much rather sit here and talk about things that may or may not benefit somebody else in like a helpful way. I feel
I've
like-
definitely learned a lot just like sitting here on the side for a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been sitting on the side to a lot of stuff for a while, so
Sure.
soaking it all up. But all right. Well, I think we should go ahead and wrap up and keep this week's episode short and sweet. Call it the Kyle episode. Kyle and
Alrighty.
Fine Line. Or Fine Line and Kyle.
Mostly fine line, a little Kyle.
Kyle's the more important thing sometimes.
Fair.
But all right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everybody for tuning in and
Yeah, thank
listening
you
to
for
our
joining
shenanigans
us.
for another week. You can catch me let's see, we got our Instagrams. You can reach out to us on the Tattoo Collecting 101 Instagram page. That's probably like the most direct way to reach out to me, Kyle, or Ben. Like all 3 of us can see that and share that. Yeah, tune in Monday to the Tattoo Weekly if you want to see some serious stuff. Tune in with us if you want to see a little bit sillier stuff, but it's all about learning and spreading knowledge and embracing our community. So,
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, sign us off.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone.